Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Wandering Neuron, where we drift slowly, softly into the spaces science hasn't fully mapped, and wander gently through the mysteries of the universe, the mind, and everything in between. If you're here to rest, to dream, or to listen as your thoughts begin to slow, you're in the right place. So, take a deep breath, let the day slip away behind you, and feel your body grow still as your mind opens like a tide pool at dusk. Tonight, we're going somewhere vast, older than bones, deeper than fear, and quieter than even silence itself. We are going to the deep sea. Not the surface waves that glitter beneath the sun, not the coral gardens brushed by divers, but far beneath even that, to the ink-dark places where pressure flattens steel, where light has never danced, where creatures drift like forgotten thoughts in a dream. And the question we're gently floating toward tonight is why? Why is it that even now, in a world filled with satellites, submarines, and science, the deep sea is still unexplored? The ocean covers more than 70% of our planet, yet we've mapped only a tiny fraction of its seafloor. We've walked on the moon more than we've visited our own abyss. Isn't that strange? Isn't that oddly beautiful? So let's settle in and begin our descent. Let your thoughts dissolve like grains of sand in tide water. Let your breathing slow like ocean currents deep beneath the frozen pole. And come with me as we begin to wonder and wander into the liquid dark. Welcome to tonight's journey. Why the deep sea is still unexplored. Close your eyes and imagine the Earth not as a planet of land, but as a planet of water. Because it is. More than 2/3 of the surface is sea. But we walk upon our little islands of stone and soil as if that were the rule, as if the ocean were the exception. Beneath our continents lie edges that slope away into something unimaginably vast, a blue that deepens and deepens until it becomes black. If you were to stand at the edge of a continental shelf, you would see a plunge, not a gentle slope, but a cliff, a falling away into shadow, into the midnight zone. The ocean floor is not flat. It is mountainous, twisting, carved by tectonic plates and volcanic scars. It holds valleys deeper than the Grand Canyon, mountains taller than Everest, all drowned in silence. And down there, the weight of the water above is unthinkable. More than 1,000 times the pressure we feel on land. Down there, everything is different. But here's the mystery. This realm lies just beneath us. We are floating always above a world we cannot reach. A world that stretches beneath cruise ships, islands, and continents, waiting. And yet, we know so little. So few names, so few maps, so few footprints on its shifting sands. The ocean is beneath our feet, and yet, somehow, it remains beyond our grasp. Let's descend now. Not physically, but softly, in our minds. Let's follow the light as it fades. The first few meters of ocean are filled with sunlight. The epipelagic zone, it's called. That's where most sea life we know lives. The reefs, the fish, the colors. But after about 200 meters, the light thins. Colors disappear. Red vanishes first, then orange, then yellow, until only blue remains, a ghost of color in a darkening blue world. At 1,000 meters, the light is gone. We are now in the bathypelagic zone, the midnight zone. No sunlight ever touches this place, only darkness and pressure and cold. But it is not empty. Oh no. This is where the unknown lives. Creatures of strange form, some tiny, some vast, some transparent, some with lights on their heads, some who pulse softly like jelly made of glass. These are not monsters. They are miracles, adapted to a life of no light, no warmth, no surface. They see with senses we don't understand. They move slowly, gliding like forgotten dreams through the silence. This is a hidden world, one that existed long before we did, and will likely remain long after we're gone. But we have barely touched it, because getting here is not easy. Here, in this depth, we begin to feel the weight. Literally. The pressure increases by 1 atmosphere for every 10 meters of depth. So by the time we reach 1,000 meters, we're under 100 atmospheres of pressure. That's like having a small car balanced on every square inch of your body. The steel hulls of submarines begin to groan. Windows would crack. Unprotected, a human body would be crushed in an instant. The deep sea is not just dark. It is hostile. It is a place our soft, air-filled bodies were never meant to be. And yet, there is a peace here too. A crushing silence that feels like sleep. No noise from the surface, no sound from the skies. Only distant echoes. The call of a whale carried for miles. The slow grinding of tectonic plates. The crackle of shrimp snapping like static in the dark. Here, even sound is strange, because the water carries it faster, but less clearly. A mystery of acoustics and silence. You begin to realize this place does not want to be found. It folds sound into shadows, crushes intruding objects, keeps its treasures locked beneath a weight few machines can survive. This is why it is unexplored, because the sea resists us, not with violence, but with sheer, indifferent power. And still, despite the cold, despite the dark, despite the crushing pressure, life persists. This is perhaps the greatest mystery of all, that in a place that seems utterly uninhabitable, there is life. Not just bacteria, but animals, predators, entire ecosystems. There are anglerfish with lures that glow in the dark, drawing in prey with a trick of bioluminescence. There are giant squid, rarely seen, with eyes the size of dinner plates, adapted to spot faint glimmers of motion in the pitch-black void. There are vampire squid, drifting gently with webbed arms like cloaks. There are sea cucumbers, soft and slow, crawling over the muddy floor like sleepwalkers in a dream. There are even entire communities around hydrothermal vents, places where the earth bleeds heat into the cold water. And there, without sunlight, life thrives on chemical energy, a process called chemosynthesis. Creatures feed not on plants, but on the energy from the Earth's own molten heart. It's strange to think, but life can exist without light, without warmth, without the surface. And yet, we've seen only a fraction of these beings, only those we've managed to glimpse before they vanish back into the dark. What else is down there? What new shapes? What ancient rhythms? What life waiting quietly in a world untouched by sunlight? We do not know. And perhaps that is part of what makes the deep sea so endlessly dreamlike, that it holds what we have not yet named. Down here, in the quiet dark, something remarkable begins to shimmer. Tiny sparks, gentle glows, living light. Not from the sun, but from the creatures themselves. This is bioluminescence, the language of the deep sea. Imagine a fish drifting slowly through ink, a flicker of blue at the tip of a spine, a trail of light like falling stars behind its tail, a pulsing lantern below its eyes. This glow is not just beauty, it is survival. Some use it to lure prey, like the anglerfish, dangling a lighted bait in front of its toothy grin. Others flash suddenly to startle predators, a kind of underwater lightning, a burst of confusion, then silence. Some creatures wear light-like clothing, rows of tiny lights on their bellies, used to camouflage against the faint glow of the surface above. When a predator looks up, they disappear into the brightness. Others blink in a rhythm, a Morse code of the deep sea, flashing signals to attract mates or warn enemies. And some, like certain jellies, drift with a glowing halo, like a soft lantern floating through eternity. Bioluminescence is not rare down here. In fact, it's the rule, not the exception. Most creatures in the deep sea can glow. Why? Because in the absence of sunlight, light becomes language. And this language is silent, hypnotic, like dream logic. The molecules behind this glow, luciferin and luciferase, sound almost mythical. They spark a reaction when exposed to oxygen, creating cold blue-green light with almost no heat. Soft, efficient, quiet. No batteries, no wires, just biology. Just wonder. We barely understand it. We've only recently begun to study its purpose, its patterns, its power. Yet, for the creatures who live here, it is essential, a way to be seen or not seen in a world where vision is otherwise meaningless. In a place where darkness reigns, light becomes life. And perhaps a tiny glowing reminder that even in our deepest unknowns, something is always shining. To reach the deep sea, we've tried. Oh, how we've tried. We've built submarines, drones, cables, remote-operated vehicles with cameras and claws. We've sent titanium spheres down to places where no human can survive. We've dropped instruments into the black, hoping to retrieve them with data scratched like whispers from the deep. But here's the truth. Most of our machines fail down there. Why? Because the deep ocean crushes things. Steel bends like paper, plastic shatters, electronics fizzle under the weight of invisible tons. Even signals, sound waves and sonar, become distorted, bouncing off strange surfaces, lost in the folds of undersea canyons. Then there's the cold. Near freezing. Pipes crack, lubricants freeze, batteries die. And the distance. Even when we succeed in sending something down, the journey is long. Data takes time. Recovery takes longer. It's not like space, where telescopes can orbit and watch from afar. The deep sea is hidden, opaque. It doesn't want to be seen. Light doesn't travel here. Radio signals don't work. We are blind and mostly deaf. We've created just a few crafts capable of surviving the deepest ocean trenches, like the Trieste, which reached the Mariana Trench in 1960, and James Cameron's Deep Sea Challenger in 2012. That's it. Just a handful of human descents into a world as vast as space. Imagine that. Only 3 people have been to the deepest part of the ocean. More people have walked on the moon because the ocean is not a place we visit easily.
And every time we try, it humbles us. It breaks our tools. It swallows our data. It hides its secrets. Not angrily, not cruelly, just unbothered, because it was never ours to conquer. In the golden age of exploration, we charted continents, mapped rivers, climbed mountains. We even pointed our telescopes to the skies and imagined life on Mars before we understood life in our own seas. But the deep ocean? We left it behind. Why? Because it is harder, because it is darker, because it is less romantic, less visible. It does not give up its secrets easily. It does not sparkle in the night sky. It does not call to us like the stars. And so we call it the forgotten frontier. But make no mistake, it is no less vast, no less full of mystery. There are entire mountain ranges we haven't mapped, volcanoes that erupt beneath the waves, canyons that stretch for miles, species we've never named. In fact, we've explored only about 5% of the ocean floor. 5%. It is a wilderness, not of trees and wind, but of silence and salt. A place where human imagination gives way
to something even more profound: humility. And perhaps that's why we've forgotten it. Because it doesn't play by our rules. Because it doesn't need us. It just is. Waiting. Changing. Flowing. And perhaps calling quietly to those who still remember that not all frontiers are above us. Some lie below. We often think of the deep sea as silent, and in many ways, it is. There are no crashing waves, no wind, no human voices. But listen closer. There are sounds. Odd, strange, haunting sounds. Echoes and vibrations. Soft pulses. Rumbles that roll through hundreds of miles. There are clicks, like the sound of distant typewriters. There are booms, as if something massive shifted in the dark. And there are songs, the calls of whales that can travel thousands of kilometers. Scientists have recorded mysterious noises with names like the bloop, a train, upsweep, and we still don't know what made them. Maybe it was geology, maybe it was animals, maybe it was something else entirely. Because in this place, sound behaves differently. It moves faster through water than air. It can curve, bend, and bounce in unexpected ways. The ocean becomes a cathedral of echoes, a chamber of whispers where even a small noise can seem enormous. Submarines once used this to hide. Sonar pinged out like radar in the dark. But even sonar has its limits down here. And so, the deep sea speaks in riddles, in frequencies we can't always hear, in vibrations we don't yet understand. Isn't that beautiful? To know that beneath the surface there are sounds we cannot name. Alien whispers, ancient moans, the voice of the planet, speaking from the bottom of the world. Close your eyes and imagine the ocean not as a place, but as a mirror. What if the deep sea is a reflection, not just of Earth's hidden geography, but of the mind itself? Carl Jung once said, "The sea is a favorite symbol for the unconscious, the mother of all that lives." And indeed it fits. The surface of the ocean is like our waking mind, busy, sunlit, full of activity. But beneath that lies the unconscious, dark, vast, unexplored, filled with memories we don't access, emotions we don't understand, desires we don't admit. Like the deep sea, our subconscious is shaped by forces we can't see. It is powerful, mystical, sometimes frightening, but always essential. Just as the ocean drives our weather, our inner depths shape our behavior. And just like the ocean, we have mapped only a fraction of it. We dive in dreams. We glimpse strange images. We awaken unsure of what we saw. The deep sea is not just physical. It is symbolic. A reminder that even within ourselves, there are places left uncharted. And maybe, just maybe, that's part of why the deep sea calls to us in whispers, like a dream we almost remember. Section 11. Trench Time. Mariana and beyond. Now, let us go deeper still, beyond the midnight zone, beyond the bathypelagic, the abyssal, to the deepest part of our planet's ocean, the hadopelagic zone, from the Greek, Hades, the underworld. This is the realm of trenches, long, narrow scars torn into the seafloor by the shifting of tectonic plates. And among them lies the Mariana Trench. Located in the western Pacific, it stretches near
The pressure down there? Over 1,000 times the atmosphere on land. 8 tons per square inch. A place where sound moves faster. Time seems to slow, and nothing familiar remains. Then, for decades, no one returned. Until 2012, when filmmaker James Cameron made a solo dive. He described it as lunar, lifeless, colorless, alien. And yet, even there, tiny creatures stirred. Because even in the deepest trenches, life finds a way. We call these places extreme environments, but perhaps we should not. Perhaps they are not extreme, but simply different. Perhaps we are the unusual ones, air-breathing animals on a thin crust of land, trying to understand a planet that is mostly ocean. The trenches are not hostile. They are simply ancient. They are time capsules, places unchanged for millions of years, where fossils fall like snow, where silence lives. They remind us there are places on Earth that remain untouched by our stories, places that do not care for light, places that speak in geology and pressure, places we are still too young to understand. What flows in the deep sea is not just water, it is time. These waters are ancient, older than trees, older than dinosaurs, older even than bones. The deep sea holds primordial memory, a living archive of the planet's long story, sediments that fall layer by layer, like dust settling in an abandoned library. Down here, a single centimeter of mud may hold thousands of years. The carbon of ancient forests, the shells of vanished species, the ash of volcanic eruptions. Here, time doesn't move in hours or days. It moves in epochs. The ocean bottom holds clues to mass extinctions, shifting continents, the birth and death of ice ages. Some deep-sea currents take 1,000 years to complete one cycle, a slow, drifting motion, so gentle, so vast, that it reshapes entire climates above. And deep down, the water barely moves. It's cold, still, and rich in dissolved nutrients. It flows like memory itself, slow, steady, waiting to be stirred. When we drop instruments into these depths, we're not just exploring space, we are sampling Earth's past. Tiny foraminiferous shells tell stories of a warmer planet.
Dark layers mark extinctions. And still, things live here. Worms, jellies, soft-bodied forms that may resemble creatures from before bones evolved. The deep sea is not just unexplored, it is unspoiled, a mirror of time before us, a record not written in books, but in pressure, silence, and silt. To go there is to touch something ancient, something that remembers even if we do not. With all our knowledge, all our satellites, our sensors, our science. Why haven't we explored more? The answer, like the sea itself, is layered. First, it's expensive. Ocean exploration requires ships, fuel, teams of scientists, submersibles that must be built like tanks, and months of patient drifting. Second, it's dangerous. Storms rise without warning. Currents shift. Cables snap. Pressure destroys what it can. Third, it's invisible. Unlike space, where you can aim a telescope and look, the deep sea is hidden beneath miles of water. You can't just see the bottom. You have to go there. Fourth, it's not profitable. So far, the deep hasn't given us gold, or oil in abundance, or anything fast. And in our busy world, where time is money and wonder is rarely funded, the quiet depths are often ignored. But perhaps the truest reason is simpler. We are afraid. Afraid of what we might find. Afraid of the unknown. Afraid of the unfathomable. Because the deep sea challenges what we think we know. It shows us we are still beginners. Small creatures on a big planet, peering into a vastness that does not explain itself. It humbles us, and sometimes we resist humility. And yet, despite all this, we return. We dream. We build better machines. We send them back into the black. Because curiosity is our light, and even the deepest sea cannot extinguish that. The sea is patient. It does not rush. It does not announce. It does not unfold its secrets quickly. Nature, especially in the deep, does not owe us revelation. Some creatures live for centuries before reproducing once. Some migrate slowly, across years, not days. Some have never been seen alive by human eyes. And so we ask, why are these secrets kept? Perhaps they are not kept at all. Perhaps we are simply not ready to listen. Perhaps the sea has always spoken, but we lack the language to hear. We have long believed discovery comes from force, from breaking things open, from shining lights where there is darkness. But the deep sea teaches something different. It teaches stillness, observation, respect. To discover, we must wait. To understand, we must humble ourselves. Some things cannot be rushed. Some mysteries must be approached with reverence, with silence, with awe. The deep sea does not reveal herself to the loud. She responds only to those who drift, who listen, who do not expect her to be a spectacle. She is not a performance. She is a presence. And like all great presences, She speaks in quiet ways.
And now, let us return, slowly, not to the surface, but inward. Because in so many ways, the deep sea is not just out there. It is in here, too. In our dreams, in our emotions, in the parts of us we do not fully understand. We each carry oceans within us, currents of memory, trenches of sorrow, islands of joy. Sometimes we know only our surface thoughts, the sunlit ripples. But within, there is depth, there is shadow, there is quiet, there is pressure, and there is life. Parts of ourselves we rarely visit, fears we've buried, desires we don't yet name, mysteries we feel but cannot explain. The deep sea reminds us, not everything needs to be solved. Some things can simply be felt. Some questions are their own kind of beauty. To drift in the unknown, whether within or beneath, is not weakness. It is wonder. It is awe. It is the beginning of understanding. So tonight, as you rest, know this: the sea does not need to be conquered. You do not need to be solved. Both of you are vast. Both of you are mysterious. And both of you are beautiful in your becoming. When we sleep, our minds wander, and so often they wander to water. Have you noticed? The ocean appears in our dreams not as a backdrop, but as a feeling. Sometimes gentle, sometimes overwhelming, sometimes endless, but always deep. Why? Because the ocean, like dreams, has no edges. It is boundless. It flows beyond what we can hold. And within it, things rise, unbidden, then disappear again. Just like thoughts, just like fears, just like longing. To dream of the sea is to touch something ancient inside you, a place beyond language, a place before memory. You may dream of floating, weightless, suspended, safe. Or you may dream of drowning, overwhelmed, out of breath, helpless. Because the sea, like the mind, contains both peace and danger. It holds the power to calm and the power to consume. And dreams are how we dip our toes into that mystery. Children dream of whales and waves, of sunken ships and lost cities, of drifting in a small boat with no land in sight. These are not stories. They are symbols. The unconscious speaking in images, using the language of the sea to tell us what words cannot. And in those dreams, we often learn what we could not say aloud, what we desire, what we fear, what we have hidden beneath the surface of ourselves. When we dream of oceans, we are not imagining something far away. We are returning to something inside, to something deep. Because the ocean lives in us, just as we once lived in it. Before lungs, before land, we were waterborne. And so perhaps we are not just dreaming of the ocean. Perhaps the ocean is dreaming through us. calling us back, reminding us of where we began and where, in silence, we still belong. Long before science, long before sonar and submersibles, we felt the deep sea in our imaginations, and so we made stories. We whispered of what must live below, in the blackness where no sun shines, and we filled that space with myths. Sailors told of krakens, massive beasts with arms like ship masts, rising from the deep to pull men under. There were leviathans, serpents the size of islands, whose breath boiled the sea. There were mermaids, beautiful and strange, neither kind nor cruel, just unknowable. There were cities, too, lost ones, sunken temples of old civilizations swallowed by angry waves. Atlantis, Mu, Lemuria. We spoke of them not because we'd seen them, but because we needed to name the unknown, to draw maps of fear and wonder on a world that refused to be still. Even today, some part of us believes there is more than science can measure, more than logic can explain. Because the deep sea does not need belief, but belief needs it. It gives us a place to put the things we cannot hold, the monsters, the mysteries, the shadows that don't make sense in the light. And here's the quiet truth. The ocean is not offended by our myths. She does not mind. She has been here longer than our stories. She has outlasted every sailor's fear, every cartographer's blank space, labeled, "Here be dragons." And yet, some of those myths were right. There are giant squids. They do live in the deep. They do rise, sometimes to the surface. They do vanish just as quickly. There are glowing creatures. There are massive whales who sing in frequencies we can't hear. There are strange remains on the sea floor we cannot explain. Maybe myth is not wrong, just poetic. Just early science wearing the clothes of wonder. And maybe the abyss still holds stories we haven't written yet. Because the ocean never said it was empty. It only said, come slowly, come quietly, and be ready to not understand. In the deep sea, silence is not the absence of sound, it is its transformation. Up here, we think of silence as empty, but down there, in the pressure-crushed stillness beneath 6 miles of ocean, silence becomes something else. It hums, it vibrates, it listens. The creatures who dwell in this liquid stillness do not scream or sing. Their lives are wrapped in the muffled ballet of movement and sensing. A click here, a flicker there. Tiny sounds that would be lost in any noisy forest or sky. Some fish speak in pulses. Some crabs listen with their legs. Some whales drop their songs into the trenches like notes in a bottle, knowing they may never be heard. Imagine being born in a world where sound barely travels, where your body learns to whisper in frequencies the surface can't even detect, where a single beat of your heart is a seismic event. There are entire languages we haven't learned to translate, entire symphonies we've never heard, because our ears are tuned to a louder world. And so we still do not know how the deep truly sounds, only that it speaks in ways we have yet to understand. So tonight, if your world feels too noisy, if your thoughts are loud and clumsy, let them sink.
Let them be stilled by the silence of the abyss. There's a kind of peace in learning that some of life's most profound expressions are silent. What do you become when there is no sunlight to shape your colors? In the deep sea, darkness is complete. Sunlight fades within a few hundred meters, and after that, there is only black. But it is not lifeless. In fact, the darkness here is filled with beings that make their own light. Tiny sparks, glowing trails, lamps beneath translucent eyes, lanternfish with shimmering bellies, jellyfish trailing galaxies of blue behind them, shrimp that spit out flashes like underwater firecrackers, and squids with constellations on their skin. Bioluminescence, light born from life, not borrowed from stars, not filtered from above, but made within. It is one of the ocean's most exquisite paradoxes that in the deepest, blackest places, some of the most luminous creatures exist.
And maybe it is not so different from us, from you, from the quiet light you carry, even when the world outside feels dark. Perhaps this is what the deep sea teaches most gently, that darkness is not to be feared, that what grows in it is often radiant. Tonight, as you drift, close your eyes and imagine a gentle school of glowing plankton moving like starlight just beneath the waves of sleep. From surface winds to midnight waters, through shipwrecks, thermovents, living fossils, and the language of silence, we've learned why the deep sea remains unexplored, but also why it still calls. The truth is, we could go deeper. We have the tools, the robotics, the satellites and sonars, but maybe what holds us back is something softer, a reluctance to tame mystery, to peel back the last curtain. Maybe we love that there's a part of our planet that still doesn't answer. Maybe we need the deep sea to remain a question, because we are still learning how to ask. There are likely species we've never imagined, landscapes not yet shaped by names, chemistries beyond our textbooks, and maybe even clues to where life on Earth began. So tonight, as you drift into rest, remember, there is a world beneath you, still hidden, still dreaming its slow, cold dreams, still waiting to be met. And like the sea, you too contain mysteries. Depths not yet mapped, currents not yet understood. You are a deep place, and you are not alone. Beneath the last threads of sunlight, in the darkest layers of the ocean, something stirs. Not just one thing, but many things. Whole kingdoms of life, not yet seen, not yet named, not yet known. Down here in the Hadal trenches, creatures drift past each other like thoughts in a mind that has never spoken. Some give off light, soft, cold glows like ghost lanterns, pulsing in patterns that no human eye has ever watched long enough to understand. Others are blind.
Their world is touch, taste, vibration, a language made of pressure and current. Tiny shrimp with translucent shells, jellyfish like living glass sculptures, worms that feast on chemical dreams, and beings so alien in shape and motion that they make us pause and remember. Life doesn't always look like us. And perhaps that's why the deep sea remains so unexplored, because we still carry assumptions. We seek life that looks like what we know. But life down here was never trying to impress us. It doesn't need to be beautiful. It doesn't need to be discovered. It simply is.
And to explore it, we must learn to be humble in the presence of strangeness, to sit with what we do not recognize and listen anyway. The sea is old, older than our stories, older than our bones, and it remembers. It remembers the pull of the moon's first tides, the heat of the earth's forming core, the silence before language, the slow drift of continents, the fall of meteors, the birth of reefs, the rise and ruin of islands. All of it, held in the layers of sediment, in the cold cores of deep-sea mud, in the chemical signatures of water sealed under pressure for thousands of years. We have only just begun to study this memory. With each sample taken from the deep, each bacteria extracted from the ocean floor, we peel back one more page of Earth's long diary. But the ocean will never give up all its secrets easily, because memory, like the sea, is selective. Some things are meant to rise again, and some are meant to sink and rest. Still, beneath all our science, all our sonar and submersibles, there's a quiet truth. The sea remembers us, too. It holds the carbon we exhale, the plastic we discard, the heat we release. The deep sea is not separate from us. It is part of our breath, our balance, our being. To explore it is to remember ourselves. Imagine this. You are in a submersible, thousands of meters below the surface. The world above has vanished. No sun, no sound, no time. Only this, a darkness so complete it feels like the beginning of the universe. And in that darkness, a silence that is not empty, but full of the soft ticking of unseen creatures, the distant rumble of tectonic plates, the strange calls of animals that sing to no one and everyone. This silence doesn't rush. It waits. It listens back. And perhaps that's what exploration truly means. Not finding, not naming, but listening. With patience, with reverence, with awe. We often speak of conquering nature, but the deep sea reminds us there is nothing to conquer, only things to witness and wonders to carry home quietly. As we prepare to surface, to leave this velvet black and rise back toward light, let us carry that silence with us. Let it soften our thoughts. Let it lull us to rest. Because some of the most profound discoveries happen not when we speak, but when we listen.
In the still black waters of the deep, where light from the surface never touches, a soft glow pulses. Not from the sun, but from the bodies of the living. This is bioluminescence, the language of light in the ocean's midnight world. Tiny organisms, drifting like stardust, blink with each movement. Anglerfish, with lanterns dangling from their foreheads, lure quiet meals toward them. Some flash to frighten, others to attract. Some shimmer just to say, "I am here." Bioluminescence is more than beauty. It's survival in a world without sunlight. A world that glows only when life speaks. And though we see it now, through remotely operated vehicles and dim camera feeds from miles beneath, we've still only glimpsed a few pages of this glowing script. For every sparkling jellyfish we've captured in digital memory, 1,000 more have drifted unseen, winking in the dark, then fading like dreams. To truly understand this language of light, we must return again and again, until the darkness becomes not something to fear, but something to listen to. Because in the deep, light isn't just seen, it's felt. If you sit on a beach long enough, you'll hear it, the rhythmic hush and pull, the waves like the earth breathing in sleep. But if you listen deeper, far below that gentle surf, you may hear the heartbeat of the sea. The ocean is alive with sound. Whale songs stretch for miles. Hydrothermal vents hiss softly. Shifting tectonic plates murmur in seismic whispers. But most of all, there's a kind of quiet music that hums beneath it all. A pressure, a pulse, like the sleeping body of the planet turning gently in space. Scientists have only just begun to place microphones in these deep waters, hydrophones listening without sight. And what they hear is strange and wonderful. Unidentified calls, mechanical groans, and songs with no known singer. The deep sea is not silent, it is merely private. And as we build the tools to listen without disturbing, to observe without intruding, we begin to learn how to ask permission. Because to truly explore, we must not just see the sea, but also learn to respect its silence. Why is the deep sea still unexplored? Perhaps it's because we still need it to be.
In a world that's mapped, scanned, labeled, and measured, the deep sea remains a sanctuary of the unknown. A space that says, you don't have to understand everything. And maybe that's why it draws us in. Not to conquer, but to be humbled. We look down into its impossible depths and are reminded of how little we know, of how vast this world remains, of how beautiful the unknown can be. The deep sea doesn't rush, it waits. It has waited for billions of years, and it will wait for us too. When we are ready, when we have learned to listen, to respect, to drift, and when the time comes,
we may find that the deep didn't need to be conquered at all, just quietly witnessed, just gently known. And now, dear wanderer, you've journeyed through the quietest waters of our world. You've floated past sleeping whales and glowing plankton. You've listened to the hush of unseen tides and watched the deep sea breathe, slowly, patiently, beneath the turning earth. There is still so much we don't know, still so much we haven't seen, and maybe that's just as it should be. The ocean holds its secrets close, not to keep us out, but to teach us humility, to remind us that mystery can be comforting, that the unknown is not an enemy, but a soft blanket of stars in the dark. So, as your eyes grow heavier, and your thoughts begin to ripple like waves in a quiet cove, let yourself drift. There is nothing to do now, no discoveries to chase, just the calm pull of the tide, just the soft pulse of curiosity still glowing in your chest, like a bioluminescent light flickering gently in the deep. You've wandered far tonight, and it's okay to rest now. The ocean will still be here, waiting, dreaming, breathing. Good night from the Wandering Neuron, and may your mind always wander, just far enough to feel wonder.